They say a fast meeting is a good meeting, and if you can't do a fast meeting, then at least be an on-time meeting. So let's kick us off on time. It's a couple minutes past 6, and welcome to the Ipswich Central Business Briefings. My name is Kat Matson, and I will try not to yell. My name is Kat Matson. I'm the Manager for Economic and Community Development here at Ipswich City Council, and also your moderator and facilitator for this evening. Welcome back. Can I just say, it's been well over a year since we've been able to do these business briefings in person. Who saw the video briefings that we did late last year? Couple? Yeah, only a couple. Only a couple. That's why it's really good to have you back. And even though it still does feel very weird to have a full room, spread out, distanced, with empty seats, c'est la vie. Thank you too for coming out on a rainy evening. I know that there were plenty of other things that you could have done with a Tuesday night, and so thank you for coming this evening. We promise, actually no, we don't promise, we'll endeavour to make it informative, useful and maybe even entertaining, but hopefully you get to learn some more about what's happening in Ipswich Central. Before I introduce our panellists and before I get stuck into the conversation, may I first acknowledge the traditional owners of the lands on which we meet, and in doing so acknowledge the more than 3,000 generations of trade, enterprise and commercial practices that have been happening on this land. And may I also acknowledge all of our elders, past, present and emerging. In terms of housekeeping, you now all know where the exit is because you came in through the exit. In the event of an emergency, please head either straight back up the stairs or straight out to the car park. Follow the directions of the Civic Centre staff. I'm sure you found the bathrooms. If you need to have a cigarette during the session, you know where to do that. What else do I need to cover from a housekeeping perspective? Ah, yes, the video camera. This video camera is here for us, so you can go back and watch the highlights reel. Yeah, that's why I'm a Manager of Economic Development, not a comedian. But also so the people who couldn't make it this evening can see what's happening in Ipswich Central. If you have an exclusive modelling contract, please make sure you don't appear in the frame, but trust us, it is a single camera only this evening and it's just on our panellists, so you should be fine. When it does come to Q&A though, I will ask that you wait for the microphone so it can get picked up on the video. So just hold, and you will also notice that because of COVID, we can't hand you the microphone. So one of the team will actually hold the microphone, you'll get to ask your question, and then we'll answer it. And so on that note, while I'm doing the whole questions thing, when you do have a question, try to keep it as contained and as succinct as you can so we can get through many, many questions. In the old days, I used to say, think of it like a tweet, but nobody tweets anymore, so there's no point using that frame anymore. So with that, there are some far more interesting people than me sitting on our panel that I would like to introduce. And then the Mayor is going to give us a quick update before we dive into a Q&A session. So, starting from my far right, your far left, we have Peter Tabulo, the General Manager of Planning and Regulatory Services. We have James Hepburn, the Chair of the Retail Sub-Project Committee for Nicholas Street. We then have, I hope everybody knows, the Deputy Mayor, Councillor Marnie Doyle, who's also the Chair of the Ipswich Central Redevelopment Committee. We have the Mayor, Teresa Harding. We then have Larry Waite, who is the Safe City Manager. We have Joe Jordan, who is the City Events Manager. And last but absolutely not least, we have Councillor Nicole Jonick, who is the Chair of Economic and Industry Development. So we've got a whole host of things that we want to update you on today, but as I said, it's very much a Q&A. But before we get started, I would love to invite the Mayor up because the Mayor's just been in Canberra telling everybody about Ipswich, and she's been having some fantastic conversations, not just about Ipswich, but I feel like what our neighbouring councils are doing and that general business vibe. So to kick us off, I'm going to invite the Mayor up to open this evening. Would you please welcome Mayor Teresa Harding?
Thank you so much, Kat. That was a wonderful introduction. Look, as Mayor, probably one of the toughest things, and I think probably the most critical thing that I need to do, is to shake down other levels of government for investment out here. Councils collect about 3% of taxes that we all pay, and the state and federal governments collect 97%. So a big part of our role as council and also myself as the mayor is to lead that advocacy to secure funding. And the data doesn't lie. Ipswich has not received its fair share of relative fair share for our growth story. We are the fastest growing city in Queensland. Our growth is 4.6% year on year to 2036. Queensland's growth rate is 1.6 and Australia's is about 1. So just in that last quarter, from October to December last year, we welcomed 1,593 new residents to Ipswich. So our growth projections are a reality. We are a nationally significant city, and we need to ensure that our growth story is heard loud and clear across all levels of government to ensure our economy and community is better supported. We ran a significant advocacy campaign last year in the lead up to the state election with business leaders and the councillors, which was a first for our city. When you have the city leaders and councillors advocating for the same things in an organised and coordinated fashion, it ensures that our voice is heard, like they are in other cities who do the same. It also makes a lot of sense for us to collaborate with our neighbouring councils and to get the ear of the state and federal members. South East Queensland plays an important part in national productivity, and Ipswich is a big part of South East Queensland. Last week I joined a delegation of South East Queensland Council of Mayors in Canberra, and it was evident that the delegation carried significant weight within our SEQ region's importance in the national productivity and growth agenda. We met with the Prime Minister Scott Morrison, the Leader of the Opposition Anthony Albanese, and a number of key ministers and shadow ministers. And I think there's some of the brochures that I gave out to all of them that was handed, and I talked each one of them through that. We were seeking support for the city deal and regional transport infrastructure ahead of the potential 2032 Olympic and Paralympic Games. All of the conversations included significant discussions on investment in transport infrastructure, resource recovery and recycling infrastructure, and the circular economy industry development, as well as our Resilient Rivers initiative. We also arranged one-on-one meetings with targeted members of Parliament and ministers and shadow ministers to re-pitch the brand of Ipswich. There appeared to be a relative surprise about Ipswich's strong growth and the performance of our economy, and also our robust business case approach was really well received. I didn't go down there with pretty pictures, I went down there with business cases. I went there to show that what the growth is and with actual hard facts. And because of that, last month, Infrastructure Australia actually have put on the Ipswich to Springfield Central public transport corridor on their priority list. So this is a huge step forward for us. These meetings followed February's visit to Ipswich from the Deputy Prime Minister and Minister for Infrastructure, Transport and Regional Development, the Honourable Michael McCormack. And also we had visits from the Premier and the Minister for Trade, Anastasia Palaszczuk, and also the Queensland Cabinet. And we also had a visit from the Deputy Premier, Stephen Miles, as well. The advocacy that we are pushing forward to make sure that we have connectivity and the services that we need here are the Ipswich to Springfield Central Public Transport Corridor, which is a 25-kilometre corridor. And 70% of our future growth is actually going to happen across that corridor, so we actually need that connectivity. The Ipswich Central River Crossing, or the Norman Street Bridge as it's called. The Ebenezer Intermodal Terminal, including the Cunningham Highway upgrades. The North Ipswich Sport and Entertainment Precinct. And waste reform and circular economy opportunities, which I think are probably a really good opportunity for us here. We also advocated strongly for roads of strategic importance, including the Amberley Interchange, the Mount Crosby Interchange on the Warrego Highway, and the massive amount of roads that we need to build in the Ripley area. The 2021-2022 federal budget provides an opportunity for the Australian Government to lead investment in major infrastructure, and we made a submission highlighting Ipswich's growth story and why it's so nationally significant for them to invest here. Since this new council has been elected, we have received grants and investments to the value of over $36 million, basically half and half from the state and federal governments towards infrastructure. And that's a really important part for us to play. I won't talk anymore. I know you'll have lots of questions. I don't want to go into the areas that the Deputy Mayor and Nicole would like to go into. But thank you very much for coming. I wasn't sure with the rain today whether people would come. I really appreciate you coming here, and I look forward to your questions.
Thank you, Mayor. Alrighty. So one of the things that you possibly don't know if you've never sat on a panel is just how awkward you feel sitting at the front of the room not saying anything and watching everybody else. Like, it's kind of this reverse audience thing. So I'm going to kick it off with just a general warm-up question for the panel. So panel, as I come down the line, can you tell us, in the context of Ipswich Central, what's been your highlight in the last 12 months? Knowing that it's roughly 12 months this week that the whole COVID lockdown really started to become very real for good old Brisbane and for good old Ipswich. And it started to become, it wasn't an overseas story anymore, it was ours. So what's been your highlight, Councillor Jonik, in the last 12 months for Ipswich Central?
It would be the opening of Tulma Place and welcoming the families back into the centre and just seeing it come to life.
Yeah, nice. Thank you. Jo, we can't share mics. Can't share mics.
Mine would certainly be the Ipswich program of the Brisbane Street Art Festival that rolled out last August. That really has made Ipswich Central a much brighter place now.
Who saw some of the murals for the Brisbane Street Art Festival? Yeah. Yeah, I know, they're pretty cool, aren't they? Thank you, Jo. Larry, what's been your highlight?
Probably of an evening looking at the lights and the spectacular appearance of what we've got down there in that Nicholas Street precinct, and it just looks fantastic. And to see families walking every night time enjoying the lights is just amazing to see that they're enjoying it.
Who's seen the lights, the night lights down at Nicholas Street? Yeah, not so many yet. Yep. Mayor, what's been your highlight?
Well, I'm going to be a bit cheeky since the big ones have been taken, but the highlight would have been running through all the water fountains and sprinklers with Marnie when Tulma Place opened.
I love that it was the mayor and not kids who got drowned in all of their clothes. First up, Councillor Doyle, what's been your favourite so far?
Well, mine isn't going to be nearly as exciting as the water fountain story, and it's probably it's definitely something that the room won't be aware of. Our Nicholas Street redevelopment and the Ipswich Central master plan that we're developing, and I hope to share details later on. That's a passion project for me, and I know is really important to all of you in the room. So I guess a highlight for me has been working on the Nicholas Street precinct development and hearing about the extremely positive interest from investors. You know, when we talk about inward investment, we're trying to attract to our CBD and our strategies and plans that we want in place going forward to attract that. Just through our redevelopment, we've got strong interest, and I am so excited and can't wait to be able to share that.
Thank you, Councillor Doyle. James, what's been your highlight?
I think
Only one.
Speaking on behalf of the project team, we're just glad the fountains worked on that day. But no, also I think there's a small passion project within Nicholas Street, which is the Commonwealth Hotel, and just starting to watch that beautiful old building come back to life and be saved is actually very special.
Yeah, nice. And Peter?
Kat, for me as an urban planner, it's seeing the results of investment and redevelopment occurring and that revitalisation. And I don't think Ipswich has seen what potential it's going to see over the next couple of years as a result of that investment.
Yeah, agreed. If you've got a question, just raise your hand. I'll keep checking in. And if you don't have a question, I'll just keep going on with my list, because I've got plenty. Alrighty, I'll keep going then. Councillor Doyle, we've just heard from the Mayor about her trip to Canberra and the advocacy piece. You just mentioned that you chair the Ipswich Central Redevelopment Committee. So much attention's gone to Nicholas Street. Can you tell us a little bit about some of the programs that we've been doing in other Ipswich Central areas, like, for example, the top of town?
Okay, so we're working on a number of different things. Beautification, something as simple as that. So top of town, we will start to see something as simple as fairy lights and painting over some of the surfaces on the footpaths. As you enter the CBD, there will be trees being planted alongside the road. So just generally beautifying, right through to our facade improvement program, which is in the wider CBD. We're getting to see some of our beautiful old buildings being restored, and that program was where council matched dollar for dollar up to $15,000, so property owners could improve their buildings as we work towards, transforming our precinct. Should I keep going or stop talking?
That's all right. We'll come back. But Hands up, who in the room has who's been part of the pilot facade program? Oh, look at you all. Welcome. I look forward to hearing from you later about some of the facades that have been improved. I know people saw Vogler's hobby shop upgraded, and we're looking forward to seeing the others. Who's been into the newsagent and seen the artwork in there? It's so cool. It's so beautiful. Yay, Pauline. Excellent. And Councillor Johnnick, at the end of last year, we were the first Queensland council to sign up to be a small business friendly council. Why is that so important to you as the Chair of Economic and Industry Development?
Because we have such a thriving and massive small business community. So to get behind them, they're usually the underdogs, the ones that pull small wages but employ a lot of our local residents. So it's great to get behind them to aid in, different improvements for regulations.
Yeah, and reducing things like red tape.
Yeah,
So, for
exactly.
example, you want to tell everyone about the food truck friendly stuff?
So the Food Truck Friendly Council initiative was something that Councillor Madsen brought to light, and it fell within our Small Business Friendly Council initiative perfectly. So it will, from the 1st of July, our regulatory restrictions, I guess, so all the paperwork that is involved to get a food truck up and running can usually take up to 1 month. But we will get that down to 24 hours. So that's a massive, massive improvement, not just for our staff in the council as an organisation in their time, but also for our small businesses trying to get up and running as quickly as possible.
And it means that, an opportunistic soup van could note that the weather's going to start turning tomorrow and say, okay, let's see if we can get a soup food truck in our ideal location within just a couple of days. Peter, you're sitting next to some really interesting images, and I can see that there's another one on the wall. We will have an opportunity to go over and have a look at what's on the wall, but while we're all sitting here going, what is that? Can you tell us about what the map's telling us, and also about some of the, is it development applications?
Sure, Kat. Excuse me. The aerial photo has some of the more recent approvals that have been given for the areas around the CBD. It's interesting that they're not just solely commercial and retail proposals, but there's a range of residential and other forms of applications. And I suppose I want to just touch on that residential element as being what is a major focus, or should be a major focus going forward for the city centre. If we can encourage more residential development to occur within the city centre, then we will have the start of some more vitality, some more life. People living in the city, moving around constantly throughout the city, and then that just adds another dimension to the life and the vitality of the city centre. Ipswich has got some great elements to it. The Queen's Park, Limestone Park area is one of the most tremendous urban spaces, green spaces that a city can have. We probably turn our back to it in the main, and we should be thinking about how we can address the park and encourage it for use by people who can live close to it, and then take opportunities from that proximity. There's a whole range of elements that you all know about that make up the city centre. It's our task as urban planners and the people that have some vision to bring it to life, to sell it, and for the industry and businesses to then come on board and invest and activate the city for what we want to achieve.
Thank you. Larry, you look after Safe City, but I'm not convinced that everybody knows what that actually means. So could you talk us through what you do for and what your team does for Ipswich Central?
Wow. Look, Safe City's been around for about 26 years. We started on Christmas Eve of 1994.
Hey, Larry.
Sorry. And back in those days, the Wild West days, as some refer them to, we were pretty isolated as far as lack of policing and other services to help with some of our youths and some of the issues we had. So it all started back in those days with a few security guards on the street patrolling, doing the job of some of the police. And then eventually that turned into partnerships with the police, and here we are today, still going. But it's not just all about the cameras, it's about trying to understand what's actually happening in the community. And we don't, as Safe City, get out there and talk to the people, to the businesses per se, but we do have economic development and economic engagement teams that go out there and deal with that for us and bring back that information and that insight. And we look at the perceptions of what's actually happening as opposed to reality of what's happening, and we try and meet that gap in the middle and try and plug it and deal with it as we can. Very difficult, as you could understand, the issues that you all face as a business from our use and other things that occur in the areas. It's not all about the cameras. Unfortunately, the cameras can't climb down off the pole and chase people or evict them for you, but they can pass on valuable intel to the police, and that's what it's all about. 3,000 or 4,000 cases a year we hand over to police from just our observations and input from the community, and we get that response from them. So it's a hard job, it's a hard task every day, and every day is different, but we look forward to it, and we like making a difference out on the street.
Larry, I popped the slide up of the control room. Can you just tell us what happens in here on a daily basis?
Sure. There's at least 2 operators there 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, who don't like to be on camera, so they hide. But they proactively engage those screens. Can I stand up for a minute,
Yeah,
Kat?
go for it.
This side here is we consider one wall, one panel, and this is the middle panel and the end panel. One operator controls everything on this screen, another operator controls everything on that screen. What they do is proactively engage the cameras. They move those cameras at random. They do have a pattern to a degree, but basically at random. There's about 360 cameras, and they've got the ability to zoom in about 600 metres and identify a number plate, count money in someone's hand, and get some valuable intel and try and work out what's going on. And it's not all about crime. They also find things that have fallen off a vehicle, or someone's got a flat tyre and needs assistance in the rain, like today, or someone's fallen over. We get them assistance. So it's not always about police and tickets and fines. It's about helping the community. But that's what they do, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. They proactively engage those cameras, looking for anything that endangers the public or its property.
Thanks, Larry.
Kat,
Yes, Mark. Councillor Doyle.
if it's okay, I would just like to add, so Larry is what I call a reluctant hero he's putting his head down. I'm not sure how many of you in the room have lived in Ipswich long term, but if you have, you would know that in the late 80s, early 90s, Ipswich had a huge problem within the CBD in relation to crime and quite violent crimes. This man here, almost single-handedly, turned that situation around. I was late teens in those days and very aware and vivid memories of what was going on in our streets. And Larry was instrumental in changing the direction in Ipswich and turning crime on its head. And I just feel we are blessed to still have him on board, and as we head into the future and start facing any challenges going forward, now that our CBD is coming back to life, completely secure in Larry's hands, that he'll help us navigate these new waters.
Thank you, Councillor Doyle. That is lovely of you to say. If you've got a question, raise your hand. Yes, we'll bring a microphone. While the microphone's coming to you, I'm going to go to James. James, give us an update on Nicholas Street.
Yeah, gladly.
A quick one, though, because I'm guessing this is a question about security, but we will come to you, sir. Nicholas Street.
Well, as you'll see, the hoardings have come down on the main part of the square, Tomwell Place, and the council building, which will be occupied in not so distant future. So that's coming on in June. The Children's Library, I believe, planned opening for towards the end of June 28th. And then we'll be moving straight into the second phase of construction, which is essentially all the shops and restaurants, predominantly grab-and-go food, and that happens within the metro piece. And a building we call Eats, which you'll see has got some white hoarding out on it at the moment and sits in the middle of Nicholas Street. So we're gradually working our way through the development, and I'm sure... I'll happily talk about it quite a bit more as we go into the session.
Thank you, James. Question at the back.
Yes. Hi. Is it on?
Yep, you're on.
I'm on. Two questions. Is it publicly available document of where the Safe City cameras are located within the CBD? And I understand if for privacy reasons maybe they're not, but it would just I live adjacent to the CBD. It would be nice to know where they are for the safest routes to walk home. And also, is there facial recognition software on the in the Safe City, or is that beyond our budget?
So two-part question. I'll give two-part answer. No, the cameras at Safe City aren't publicly available. We can give approximates of where they are, and I'm happy to meet with you or anyone else and possibly even give you a tour of Safe City and let you see the area in which you live, so you can see the cameras. But we don't openly publicise the cameras for a number of security reasons you could appreciate. And what was the second question?
Facial recognition.
We've got one better as far as facial recognition. I've got people that recognise faces, and I've got people that have been there for a long time who recognise those faces, and they're not stored in a database, they're stored up here. But look, seriously, we have the technology that can do wonderful things, but we do not use facial recognition. We do not engage or to use it. If the circumstances ever warranted it, and I don't think they would in Ipswich for a long time to come, we would certainly look at using it, but at the moment we leave that up to the police.
Beautiful, thank you. I was going to say, once the questions start, they keep going. So there's another question down here. While the microphone's coming, Joe, tell us what you do from a city events perspective. Just because people don't necessarily understand what city events are all about.
Okay. So the city events team has I suppose like the name, a city-wide remit. So we look at the development of events in region, the attraction of events to Ipswich. We also produce 6 festivals a year. Now that COVID's over, we're back. And we also capacity build events in region. So working with community events or smaller events to actually grow their potential into something more regionally significant.
Yeah, nice. What's the next one coming up for Ipswich that is relevant to Ipswich Central?
Planes, trains and autos. So I hope that you all have either seen in your mailboxes, because they should have gone out, or you can pick one up tonight. Erin could even pass one out. But Planes, Trains, Autos is an event that we've developed over the last 18 months. It really draws upon the culture of Ipswich with having RAF Amberley in the region, the Workshops Rail Museum and the Motorsport Precinct, bringing that all together in one location for the May long weekend. So Saturday's all about planes, trains and autos. Sunday's the Queensland Auto Spectacular. So it's giving people a reason to come and stay in Ipswich over that May long weekend. And what's really nice, it's also one of only 2 designated Air Force 100 events for the centenary of RAF this year in Queensland. So we're pretty excited.
Very nice. Thank you, Joe. Question over here, and then the microphone will come to you.
Thank you. Just following on from James' discussion about retail development, I guess we're keen to hear if there's any commitment you have at the moment for future tenants, or what council's doing to really drive that attraction of new business to the CBD.
Yes, as it stands, we're in the leasing market right now, aimed predominantly at restaurants, coffee shops, grab-and-go offers. It's a point of difference in many ways from Riverlink across the road, where there is a big retail centre. We don't need to go head-to-head with them. We need to look at what our point of difference is in the market. So when we talk about our precinct, we talk about it being a place to do business. We talk about it being a leisure precinct, a cultural precinct. You know, our anchors are a library, the art gallery, a major car park, and we've started building around that. Last year was delayed because of COVID. I think it affected all of us. But as it stands, the market has taken up well. We have taken through heads of terms and into legal agreements, I think 13 deals now, and that's 13 of about 20 odd that happen in the phase that you'll see commencing with hoardings and stuff in the next couple of weeks. So I'm really positive about it. I'm delighted that national brands are looking at Ipswich very differently, and I think that's partly COVID, but partly when you come up the lift from the car park and you walk out into Tolman Place, people double take on where they are. the quality of the public realm that's gone in there that will be there for lifetimes, I think makes a massive difference. And that's really starting to, that information starting to feed out in the market, and yeah, we're in a good place at the moment.
Can I just add, it's a very competitive environment, obviously, this space, and you know, we would love to be able to share more details with the community in Ipswich of who those prospective tenants are. I have oversight as part of my role as chair, and I'm delighted with the interest, and look forward to sharing the details soon.
So hold. Building the anticipation. Microphone is over your shoulder.
The food trucks, I think that sounds wonderful. I'm just wondering how it intersects with having the eats section in the mall, and whether there's going to be competition. And another question, completely unrelated.
Oh my goodness, so we're really going to have to concentrate.
Yeah. The public transport corridor from Springfield, I know it was mentioned earlier, Springfield to Ipswich. Are we now saying public transport rather than rail, or do we mean rail?
Let's do the last question first. So, Mayor, if you can do Ipswich to Springfield public transport corridor.
From the very beginning, it's always been the Ipswich to Springfield Central public transport corridor. I know around the place there's discussions about what it is. The very first business case council have paid for, and we have to do 3 business cases. The next business case is an options analysis. So they'll be looking at heavy rail, light rail, the whole lot of the options, and busway, all those autonomous vehicles, all that sort of stuff like that. So that's why it's written as a public transport corridor.
And
I can talk about the food trucks.
Go for it.
Unless Nicole wants to. Food trucks are obviously at the moment are very, very concentrated in Nicholas Street precinct, you know, until we get the eats. But food trucks can operate anywhere. So, and I think most of them will probably operate in other areas around our cities. And that's part of what we've been doing. And Nicole will have more details, but we're having food truck licensed areas, so it's very easy for those business owners to set up very easily there.
Yeah, so I think that the use of the food trucks at the moment in Tulma Place is more of an activation of the space, obviously because the eat facilities aren't open yet. But from a competition perspective, the food truck versus bricks and mortar, it's someone that's looking to go into the restaurant market but doesn't necessarily have the capital or the confidence yet, can go into a food truck business quite easily, test the market, gain confidence, and then go into a bricks and mortar business. So I see it as a stepping stone. I don't see it as a competition. I see it elevating the restaurant industry.
And one of the things that we will do as we roll that out is food truck locations, approved food truck locations will only be approved if they're a certain distance away from or at a different time to the opening hours of bricks and mortar stores, so they're not creating unfair competition. We always... Oh, the question's hiding in the audience.
So I have a question in regards to the events. A lot of the events you are talking about is down in your central section. What about the old events that used to be up the top of town, like your Halloween, your Kitchen the Switch, Honk, all that brought massive business to all the stores that are up there that aren't in that middle of town but still seem to be missing out on a lot of things because they're not down there?
So obviously the remit of city events is a citywide remit, and a lot of the, I suppose there's 2 parts to that. One is we believe that if we bring major events into the city that a lot of precincts will benefit. So if we bring 9,000 people, for example, into Ipswich for planes, trains, autos on that weekend, then by nature they're going to be going to restaurants, they'll be buying petrol, they'll be doing all of those things that bring economic return to the region. So there's that factor about why we look at major events. But then in the redevelopment of some of the festivals that we're actually doing later in the year, you will see a return to top of town. So during Spark Ipswich, which is the reimagined Ipswich Festival, there will actually be a major music event that will be staged exclusively in top of town. In fact, it's called the Brisbane Street Crawl, so it pays homage to Brisbane Street. So you will start to see events that are in development actually, I suppose, becoming a reality now.
We have another question at the back of the room.
I am the founder of Achieve Support, so my accent is going to be a little bit difficult because I speak 7 languages, which is going to be interesting.
Only 7 languages.
Yes. So we have a project to help the homeless, to reduce homeless in Ipswich. So at the moment, we are renting the house 4-bedroom to put 4 or 3 people in the house. But at the moment, the renting a house is very difficult to rent for the homeless. Now, we've contacted another company that they're trying to help us to design portable houses. Now, they were asking how is the council going to approve to put those portable houses in maybe in the bush or in somewhere in the ground somewhere. Now, how is the council going to help us to help this project going forward for the homeless in the Ipswich?
Peter, that sounds like a... Yeah,
If I could just start off, just to say thank you very much for the work that you do in helping the more vulnerable people in our society, in our community. I'll hand over to Pete to talk about the technicalities of this.
I think for that type of question, I'm happy to talk to you offline to give you the details rather than go into it in this forum here, because it is complicated and I don't want to necessarily bog the audience down with the details.
Yeah. Can I just say that councillors and council officers have already undertaken a little bit of work in this area. So Helen's Haven at Goodna, they've introduced the pods on a large decking area. Councillor Fechner has been working with that organisation and our planning guys to walk them through the steps that need to be undertaken. So happy to be involved as well to talk you through that.
I'd also be keen to talk to you about that as well, because community development also sits in my remit. Questions. We're on a roll. It always happens. Once the first question gets asked, we get to keep going. Who's got the next question? All right. Well, while you think about them, James, coming back to you, we were talking before about Nicholas Street and some of the things that are coming up in terms of leasing, but also in terms of events. Yeah, even with my glasses on, I can't read that. Can you talk us through some of the Nicholas Street specific events and what we call activations that are coming up?
Absolutely. I'll start with the food trucks, because I think that is something that will continue. It might not be as regular as we get into the swing of things and when all the other restaurants and shop units open. But I think we're trying to create a healthy demand within that precinct, one where we always have a continually changing offer that draws people back again and again for a different experience. So the Nicholas Street brand is as much about a bricks and mortar home to sit down and have your burger and then go off and do whatever it is you're going to do, as opposed to going for a music event and grabbing something on the side. And that's essentially what the schedule looks like for the rest of the year. And I won't go into how many different events. I mean, there's been a lot of work that's gone into that, and we're slowly but surely understanding the space we've created and how best to manage it. It won't be up and running and going all guns blazing probably for about another year, but it's certainly going to get busier and busier as time goes on. But some highlights for me, there's a gin festival coming up.
Sorry, pardon?
That was gin, not Jim.
That's my kind of gin. Yeah, excellent.
Which will also be surrounded by a big food and drink event. And then we'll be working into more music. There'll be an introduction of a farmer's market, which I'm particularly excited about. I think if we can get that going on a regular basis, particularly over an early morning on the weekend, and we start to create a relationship with the people of Ipswich and this location they haven't had before. Other conversations that are starting to happen in the background are looking at how do we best utilise some of the digital technology we're putting in. There's going to be a very large big screen being delivered in the not so distant future, and we'll get to work with that in terms of local artists, sporting events. Dare I say it, we might even be able to show a bit of the Olympics coming up. So watch this space. I think we'll be communicating to the local businesses and the people about trying to get the message across that there's a new square and it's the heart of Ipswich, and hopefully it will deliver on the experience that the people have been dying for a very long time.
Kat, can I just also put in a plug for outdoor dining?
Please.
We've tweaked our policy with regard to outdoor dining to allow operators to take control or use the adjoining footpath. Previously, we just said you could only use immediately out the front of your cafe or restaurant, and now we're saying with the consent of the adjoining owner, we're happy for your dining area to expand along the footpath. So to give you more opportunities for more tables, more activation.
We've also waived our outdoor dining permit fees.
Hands up who runs a food or beverage outlet in Ipswich Central. There you go. There was a follow-up question just here, Natalie, in the middle.
I've just got a question about the food truck, but not food truck. I've got a bricks and mortar, but I don't want to purchase a food truck, but I'd like to be part of the events. So can we have like a gazebo set up rather than a food truck? Is that a possibility? Because there's a few of us that would consider doing that to kind of expand so people in Ipswich know who we are outside of our bricks and mortar.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we already have a couple of food operators working out of a gazebo-style setup. One of the other things we are looking at, though, is probably a more permanent pop-up solution, whether that is some sort of kiosk or how we put that infrastructure in place. So we're currently just toying with how best to deliver that and then make it a piece of equipment that's open to all to book and come and use. So those things are happening in the background, but certainly if you're interested in coming with a marquee of some sort and joining on to one of the markets that we've got going on, then the team are happy to talk to you about that.
And James, we've already had some discussions with the precinct management team around this very issue, so I'm happy to follow up with them and I'll pop in and have a chat with you.
And Jo, do you want to tell us about...
Oh no, I just wanted to mention that a really good model is Ungerman's Ice Cream in terms of how they've turned their business around to have both that, that mobile ice cream offering as well as the bricks and mortar. And I don't know if Danny's here not here tonight.
Danny, not here?
No, but pre-COVID, like COVID have changed quite a bit, but pre-COVID there was a time where his business... that was his mobile business, was doing like just as good as his bricks and mortar. So, yeah, good operators will can make a lot of money out of it.
Yeah, I will add that every time he's been in the square, he's absolutely sold out of ice cream, which is fantastic.
It's a great unique offering, and I think that's part and parcel of it, is if you've got that great offering and you can take it mobile and you get known, so everywhere you go, people are asking for it as well.
I'm more wondering now about how I get the internal memo that I can duck down and get some ice cream in the Nicholas Street. Other questions? Come on. Yes, I was going to say, there's always more questions in this. Either you're a very shy bunch or you're concerned that we've got hours to go. We don't. We've got about 10 minutes. So if you've got a question, ask.
So there's been varying dates in the timelines over the last couple of years as we've been discussing the redevelopment, and obviously things are moving ahead rapidly. What is the timeline for council taking residency in the new building? Because obviously that will be the catalyst for the Eats precinct to come alive, and hopefully someone will lease that fantastic bar space at the end of Tulma Place. What's the latest timeline, and what's the realistic timeline for that to happen?
Thank you, Andrew, and I'm glad you see it, but this is a council project that was run ahead of schedule. So we've actually taken the keys, I guess technically, a week and a bit ago. So we'll be moving in there in June, and you'll have about 800 council workers in there. That'll be, and obviously the library as well will be opening. We're looking at that Eats area more later this year. I don't know the exact month of that, but it depends on leases and so on. But the cinema offering is more the early next year. That'd be correct?
Yeah, that's correct. There's a second part to that with the Metro building where a lot more restaurants sit, along with the Commonwealth Hotel. And currently, subject to some of the leasing, we're looking at that opening sort of this time next year. So as I said, it's a phased delivery of the project, with a lot of it on the activation and event side of things at the moment.
I think you can safely say 12 months' time, this time next year, we will be well and truly on our way to delivering.
Before I go to our next questioner, I need to acknowledge the other councillors in the room, because the questioner is a councillor. So before I ask Councillor Fechner to ask his question, I'd also like to acknowledge Councillor Russ Milligan and Councillor Kate Kudzelman, who are here this evening. I'm sure they would be more than happy to take their own questions before we go. Were there any? I think Councillor Madsen got caught up in the rain event. Councillor Fechner, you have a question for the panel.
Not for the panel as such, but probably for you, Kat. I don't know if many people in this room know your background, but you have a very, very, very strong track record of actually realising beneficial outcomes, particularly in local government, in your recent role in Brisbane City Council. Lots of the discussion this evening... Am I going to
have to take this as a comment, Councillor?
Lots of the discussion this evening has been about Nicholas Street, and I can feel the movement in the fingers and toes behind me when we're talking about just hang on a little bit more. We've got some deals on, and they will be realised soon enough. We understand the value proposition, absolutely, of Nicholas Street. The council... administrative body will move down there. There will be foot traffic. That will drive interest. That will create business in Nicholas Street. But my question is, bringing the scope outwards in terms of the work that you've done, particularly at Brisbane City Council within precinct planning. How important is that for investment attraction for our city? And what gap have you realised? Have you identified here in Ipswich that you really want to fix with some creative solutions? I want to know a little bit more about that master planning and identifying precincts to help those in the room that don't necessarily operate within Nicholas Street or don't have a particular interest in that, but the broader benefits to the entire community in Ipswich Central. I know Councillor Doyle touched on it just briefly about it being a passion piece of hers, and you and her have been working closely with that. Can you reveal a little bit more about precinct planning and how that can help us in the room understand investment attraction? Sorry, I just wanted to get it all out.
Isn't he? Well, see, now I'm caught, because as the facilitator and moderator, I would typically say I'll take that as a comment. But you're my boss, or one of them, so I'm going to have to say something. Councillor Fechner's right. The activation that's going on in Nicholas Street is extraordinarily exciting, and it's one piece in a much larger puzzle of the Ipswich Central redevelopment. Without a thriving CBD, a region struggles. We've seen it in other areas, and we know that Ipswich CBD has struggled, I would argue, because of the absence of a thriving mall, or what we now know as Nicholas Street. To answer the councillor's question about what else are we doing, well, there's some work being done around top of town, and actually bringing the top of town region together and saying, so what's this unique pocket within Ipswich? We're also about to start embarking on a piece of work around the Ipswich Centre core. What is that pocket of Ipswich Central all about? And I guess what we're really working on, and we've kind of alluded to it in the context of the Small Business Friendly Council and the Food Truck Friendly Council, is it's one thing to have big plans and documents that say this is what the future of Ipswich could look like. But unless the organisation is geared up to deliver it, it's really hard. And so one of the things, for example, that we discovered with food trucks is there's no reason why it took 4 weeks to get a food truck location approved, other than that's just how all of the various processes evolved and it became complicated. So the next piece of work that we're actually embarking on is a very internal reflective piece, and I don't mean navel-gazing reflective, I mean how do we actually work with each other? How does planning and regulatory services and economic development and community development, how do we all work together to actually optimise the region? And so
Does that mean it makes it easier for the people in this room to do business with our city?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Absolutely. And
But can I just jump in? It's not only people in this room doing business. We're looking at attracting big investors. We want people to come in and buy some of these large abandoned assets. Some are state government owned. And when we talk about inward, attracting investors, we're going to package these assets up, and we're not going to sit back and wait for people to come knocking on our door. We're going to take those out to the market. We have our planning scheme underway. That will be a big piece of work alongside. Kat's talked about, this big picture planning. It's not navel gazing. I want deliberate outcomes within the Ipswich Central Master Plan. We are setting up a round table where we'll have really important stakeholders, including Westmoreland Health. They've expressed a strong desire to be included in the discussions. They obviously own a number of the assets, or in particular the Ipswich Health Plaza. We don't want those health workers moving out of that building in a few months' time and leaving that building vacant. So we want to improve or continue with the momentum we've created out of Nicholas Street. We've attracted national attention with what we've done down there, and we want to capitalise on it and keep moving forward. Another key stakeholder we've got on board is Queensland Treasury Corporation. In my former life as an institutional banking lawyer, I had contacts there. They've now come on board. They're giving us a team of analysts. Ipswich does have a bit of an identity crisis. When we talk about our traditional industries over the years, it was mining, it was rail. What are we now? What do we look like now? What industries do we want to attract? And in addition to the wonderful Kat, I guess from an operational point of view, pulling this work together, we also have James, who has, the commercial and corporate experience to see these plans to fruition. He's worked on large projects. He knows how to attract the large investors to Ipswich, to take some of our abandoned buildings, refurb them and fill them.
And I think just to wrap up that piece of commentary, it's also about helping everyone in Ipswich understand what the new Ipswich Central is heading towards. So even existing investors, building owners know, well, where can I align? How can I support what's already going on and have the confidence to invest, or have the confidence to renovate, or have the confidence to bring in a quality tenant that might be aligned with Westmoreland Health, for example, knowing that that's the future of the region. So that's all very much part of the work that's going on at the moment. There is another question right here, and we've got time for 2 more questions after this one.
Well, I have 2 questions, I'm sorry. The first one relates to the future development stages of the CBD. Is it council's intention to retain those developments or on-sell them once they're leased? That's the first question. The second question is in relation to the existing council chambers. Is council still in negotiations to on-sell that asset to the Queensland Health Department?
For the first part, I would assume you're talking about the CBD redevelopment, what's going to happen. That is something for us to decide in the future. At the moment, our complete focus is to make sure it is a success, that we get it fully leased, that it's a thriving heart again, and then we'll make a decision then. Do we keep it? Do we sell part of it? That is something that we would have to look in
Level
the future.
2, it's important to note that level 2 of our new administration building is a space for a private tenant, and that will be returning. Can we talk about how much that's returning, James?
Best not.
Best not.
A significant amount of money, which is great.
Yep. On the second part, yes, all the land there from the council chambers, the admin building, the Hayden building, that's all been sold to Westmoreton Health.
That has now settled.
Not sure it's all signed and done.
Done. There was another question over here. Yes, thank you. Natalie's bringing the microphone to you. Yes.
So bring people to Ipswich, yes. Bring people to Ipswich CBD, yes. Bring people into these restaurants and these shops, yes. Where do they all park?
Well, aren't you lucky we've got 993 car parks in the Nicholas Street precinct?
And everybody else? Top of town, all the parking restrictions. I mean, leasing in the top of town is... I could probably lease properties 10 times over if there was better parking facilities. Is there any plans to upgrade parking or bring more parking in for vendors and their customers?
You and I have had this discussion, haven't we, Zoe? And it's a discussion whether it's in Brisbane, in Ipswich or Longreach. The CBD parking is always a challenge. We try to make sure that we try to get that balance between not all day parking, so customers are regularly coming into the stores and getting that balance right. So, I'm open to suggestions. We had a big parking strategy, but at the moment we've got public transport as well as the parking in the Nicholas Street precinct.
There's also a parcel of land adjacent to the Nicholas Street precinct beside the old rail lines there that council owns, and it's tagged for overflow car parking in need. Again, it's wait and see, I guess, what the precinct attracts via numbers.
Parking. We knew it had come up. Question here, Ben.
Is there a plan to upgrade the rail station and the transit centre beside the rail station?
Well, we're working with the state government. They obviously state government-owned assets. The Queensland government own the transit centre as well as the station, and we're working with our state members and also the departments on that. We certainly see that as a really important part of the re-imaging of Ipswich. They do need to improve. The transit centre, what's there is completely unacceptable, and Andrew's nodding over there, and so that needs to change. So we are in those discussions and negotiations with the state government.
But the state government have made it very clear that it's not suitable for transport or its former busway life. Yeah.
I feel it's apt that the final question should also go to the first questioner of the evening. So, sir, you get to ask the last question. Andrew, sorry.
Sorry. Thank you for this evening. It was really informative, and I'm really glad that everyone had a chance to, well, me particularly, had a chance to ask questions. What I've found, I live in Woodend. I'm very much involved with some businesses in the CBD. I live my life in the CBD. What I hear, and I'm in communication, what I hear from a lot of businesses is the lack of communication and engagement and liaison and looking for feedback from council. It was good for a while there, and I understand, you're all still settling in and you've had COVID, you've had all sorts of kerfuffle. I've never said that word before. But just opening up, developing better communication streams with stakeholders and the community at large. So I'm very involved in the Woodend community, and who are prime customers for this area. And they don't know, they don't see what's going on unless I share it into my little tiny 700 people group. So that's a compliment, but also some advice, some feedback.
No, thank you for that, Andrew. And I think when we came on board, all the COVID restrictions started about 2 weeks before we were signed on. And the other blow we had was the QT, not publishing. And I know everywhere I go, people talk about the fact that they don't feel as connected because they don't know what's going on. And I know businesses are looking for places that they can advertise as well. It's been a real blow. Delighted to know that this week a new weekly free paper, the Ipswich Local, will be starting. I think it comes out tomorrow. And on the 22nd of April, a brand new paper, which is we are paid weekly, but more, I think, more news content. It will be starting on the 22nd of April, which I think has been a really big gap for our community. But yeah, we came in as a new council with all the baggage that came with that, and brought in a transparency and integrity hub to change our image, so people could see how their rates were being spent and how decisions were being made. And I think what we need to do is, I guess, as we are coming up to our first year, is improve communication. So one of the things that we're doing, we'll be bringing out a newsletter across the entire city, which gives people a bit of an update on what's happening and a little bit what's happening in each of the divisions as well. But I'm very open to how you'd like communication to be. That's something that I'd like us to improve, and I think certainly not having elected reps for the 20 months and all the kerfuffle that happened beforehand. I'll use your word, kerfuffle. That is something that we really wish to improve. All of us councillors are people. We ran because we care and we love working with people. COVID was, very difficult to not be able to get out and about like we want to, and it's just been wonderful this year that we have been able to do that Queensland is a safe state, that we've been able to do that. So I'm very interested to hear from you how you'd like that communication to be, from door knocking to having a chat or electronically, or how you'd like that. We're very open to that.
Andrew, you identified, I think the group that you moderate, there's about 700 residents, and I guess that's a challenge for us in this new age, identifying the single source of truth or the single line of communication that will reach all residents. Andrew and I are on the road every day visiting residents. Our senior residents aren't on social media. People are, at me all the time, you don't post enough on social media. Well, not all of my 55,000 constituents follow my page. So the newsletter is going to be a huge help in communicating to the community what we're doing. We also, as a group of councillors, are doing our councillor catch-ups, our mobile offices. So we're at community centres, shopping centres. But again, communicating to our people where we are doing those, we put out via social media. If our senior residents don't have social media, they don't know. So absolutely hear you, and we're working on it. Thank you.
Alrighty. Oh, see, once I say it's the last question, there's always more. All right, Natalie's going to run over with the microphone while I start wrapping up. As Natalie comes over, the microphone's over here. No, it's on its way. Just want to let you know some resources that we've got for you. First of all is the Just In Case card. For any of you who have a business in Ipswich Central, who you see people who might need some support and you're not quite sure how to support them, if you take a supply of these cards, you can just have them under your counter, have them in the office, and you can give them to somebody saying, just in case you need some support. In here is a list of different youth missions, community services, emergency assistance, rough sleeper assistance, the whole kit and caboodle. So if you are ever kind of stuck thinking, oh yeah, I don't know how to support, take a supply of these, you can pop them in the shop, pop them in the office, and you've got them on hand. I will talk about the other things in a moment. Your question, ma'am.
Oh, that's a very good thing, because I could use probably 2,000 of those.
Awesome.
But my thing is on a separate issue again. Nicholas Street looks beautiful. You've done a fabulous job, but there's some issues, big issues, safety issues in the place, and I've brought them up a million times and it's just falling on deaf ears. The amount of people that I pick up off the ground every week is getting bigger and bigger. I had a pregnant woman, 7 months pregnant, who slipped on the edge of that paint. The paint is slippery. It is even worse in wet conditions. I wear runners to work every day and I nearly slip over on it, and I'm used to it.
Okay.
It's dangerous. Secondly, part of it is when you look across from where I am in the newsagents, you look across, it's beautiful. It's all lovely, grey, patterned, all the rest of it. Oldies, they don't have the eyesight that we have. So when you look at it from a distance, it all looks even. The amount of people that have gone over in their walkers, I've had to pick them up. I've had nearly unconscious people. I'm forever ringing ambulances, getting people picked up, all sorts of things. It's dangerous. It is shiny paint. It is there's no yellow paint, or you can paint it pink with purple polka dots, I don't care. But it needs to be something that stands out so the oldies can see it. They're not used to the drop. We've got gutters. We never had gutters before. People aren't used to it. It is really dangerous thing to happen. Somebody's going to die, and that's what scares me. I don't want to have to pick up a dead body.
I agree with them.
You know, it's
Shane?
constant. Unless I'm there 6 days a week, sorry. I see it all the time. People don't see it.
And Larry's office see obviously what's going on.
People in stilettos, they broke their neck. There was a pregnant woman. She was in the mall on the ground in the rain for 2 hours.
All right.
It took 2 hours for the ambulance to get to her. We couldn't move her. We had to sit there with an umbrella, her wrapped up in tinfoil. Like, you know, it's not good enough
James?
because she slipped.
I know we
on
had
that
this
paint.
conversation a little bit offline, but I'll explain a bit about. There's 2 points to it really. One, what we're doing, and two, a bit of the difference from probably what everyone expected before. There's a curb and channel. There's a road that goes down through the middle of Nicholas Street when it probably, I think, used to just be a strip mall. So there is a difference in terms of the public realm that's been delivered, but it's not really that different compared to any other street scene you'll find around the country. The paint piece, which I know people are finding slippy, has been an issue, and as of I think a couple of weeks ago, we brought in a external safety expert to give us a view on whether the contractor that installed that had done the right thing or not. So we're waiting for that result to come through on Friday. But in the interim, I know there's some planters being organised to separate a bit more what looks like essentially the road and the pedestrian environment. And for us, it's an ongoing thing. We are doing something about it. And if the independent safety expert says you've got to do X, Y, and Z, then that's exactly what we'll do. But we'll come and talk to you about that and share it with you directly as well.
Groovy. So I said we'd start on time because if you can't do a fast meeting, you can at least do an on-time meeting, and we're nudging it just 10 minutes past the hour. So I'm going to wrap things up. The councillors and the panellists are available to answer your questions. If not tonight, if you don't get to them, because I know what's about to happen, you're going to bombard them, then they are always very open and willing to help during office hours. Some things that you might want to take as you head out. Flavours of Ipswich, if you don't know about it already, it smells, sounds and tastes delicious. It's happening on April 7 to 24, so check that out. Ipswich in autumn, I'm told, goes to every single letterbox. So that is telling you about all the cool things that's happening in autumn. And if you wanted a copy of the Invest in Ipswich brochure that the Mayor was talking about that she took to Canberra last week, there's none left on the desk right now, but that's because I've got the box under the table. So just give me 30 seconds and we can get some more out. If you would like a tour, if you'd like to see the Safe City control room, just leave your details with Erin and Natalie at the desk, and Larry's team will be in touch and can show you how Safe City works. If there's anything else that any of us can do to support you, to build your business, to drive all of the good things that we want to happen in Ipswich Central, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. It is exactly what we are here to do to make Ipswich absolutely fabulous. Would you please thank the panellists in order of seating, not in order of protocol: Peter Tabulo, James Hepburn, Councillor Marnie Doyle, Mayor Teresa Harding, Larry Waite, Joe Jordan and Councillor Nicole Johnick. Would you please thank the panel? Most of all, though, thank you. Thank you for everything that you do to make Ipswich amazing. We genuinely appreciate it, and it is an honour to continue to rock up and do what it is we do. So thank you for your time this evening. Good night.